Father, we want to thank you again for the opportunity to worship on the Sabbath, the opportunity that gives us the space to rest and to be restored. Thank you for giving us a genuine smile, to know that in Jesus Christ, by faith in his sacrifice, we have eternal life. And anything that we're facing, it's smaller than you. And any dream that we're dreaming, you're bigger than that dream. So there's no reason why we should come into this situation and stay the same. And so we ask now that as you encounter and educate and encourage us, that we will be blessed. And may you feel special, feel like you're specific, and that we think about you because of the worship we offer now in the name of Jesus. Amen. I say, Daddy, what are we cooking today? Well, we're really not cooking anything today because when we talk about vitamin C, what we're going to find out as far as vegans are concerned, it's a very limited option menu in terms of eating foods that have the vitamin D that we need. So what we're going to do is show you how we can supplement that. But let's take a little bit of a walkthrough. Let's talk a little bit about vitamin D and understanding what it is. Now, we want to be very clear and give this disclaimer that the information we're talking about is not offered as a prescription or diagnosis or treatment for any disease, illness, infirmity, or physical condition. Any form of self-treatment or alternative health program necessarily must involve an individual's acceptance of some risk. So no one should assume otherwise. Persons needing medical care should obtain it from a physician. Consult your doctor before making any health decision. This information in our time together in Change Health is for the purposes of education. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about vitamin D, because this is kind of the nuts and bolts about it. Because here's the cool thing about this vitamin. It's not a vitamin that we necessarily have to take. What actually happens is that our bodies are able to synthesize this vitamin when we come in contact with the sun. So when you look here at this model of the nuts and bolts of what vitamin D are all about, that's really our primary source, which is sunlight. That sunlight, those rays, those ultraviolet rays, are then synthesized in our skin. And the biggest organ that does the most of the work when it comes to processing vitamin D and getting it into our bloodstream is our liver. So you're going to see it pointed out there, that large organ right there in the middle. That is where vitamin D is then spread throughout our body, or if you will, processed. So now, when you think of the benefits of vitamin D and how it blesses us, there on the right side, you'll see all the benefits. Normally, we think about the bone strength. That's one of the benefits, but I really want to focus on the others. One of them being the benefit that they have to the heart, because lower hypertension has been linked to adequate or sufficient vitamin D levels. Another thing we want to point out is the immune system. That's really the primary reason, especially in a time where people are wary of getting sick. Vitamin D is very, very important. And then lastly, when you look at its benefit as far as fighting off chronic diseases, even diseases like cancer, it is a great cancer fighter and a great cancer fence. In other words, a fence to keep us from getting cancer. And even if we've been diagnosed, it's going to be integral to any part of naturopathic or self-healing regimen or protocol that we're going to participate in. So that's one of the reasons why we're talking about vitamin D. Now, another thing to recognize about vitamin D is that it's fat soluble. In other words, it does not dissolve in water. So the best medium oftentimes to help our bodies absorb that vitamin D are having adequate fats, or even consuming that vitamin D with a fat. So now, as vegans, we know that when you think of most of the vitamin D sources that we consider, there's like D2 and there's D3, which basically means D2 vitamin D sources usually come from plants. But what our body really needs are D3 vitamin D. And unfortunately, most of those D3 vitamin Ds, they come from animal sources. So like your fish oils, sheep skins, or sheep lanolins, things of that nature. Obviously, we don't eat that or use that. But here's the good news. There are vegan sources of D3 that we may not necessarily be able to eat, but we can get those supplements to supplement our vitamin D production, even if we're getting adequate sunlight. And like most of us, we're not getting enough sunlight. So we are on some level probably vitamin D deficient. So let's go forward now. And knowing the benefits and why our body needs vitamin D for those specific reasons, when you look at how can I know if I don't have enough vitamin D? Well, one of the reasons you may be knowing that you're low is that you have mood changes. When we're talking about mood changes, we're not talking about feeling happy and feeling sad. That happens to all of us. What we're dealing with are mood swings. If you find yourselves having, mountaintop joy experience, then within the same day, you're just in the bottom of the basement and just in a really dark place. That could be as a result of you not having adequate vitamin D in your body. Another way that you can know if you're having vitamin D issues is that you have bone loss. And usually that bone loss is not indicated until we have some type of discomfort or some type of pain. Thank you. We can put that down. And so when you're thinking about vitamin D, it's not just with our bone strength and structure, it also deals with muscle cramps. Our body can come up short and it can manifest itself in different types of cramping. So it could be, the gastrocnemius or in our calf muscles or aches and pains, even though you've not fallen or you haven't been hit, your body's letting you know that it's missing something. So when you get to that last one, fatigue, just a chronic fatigue to where, not necessarily chronic fatigue syndrome, but even if you find yourself tired, if you've got enough sleep, or if you find yourself fatigued and you may not have that much of a stressful day, that's another indicator. All of these together probably letting you know you might be deficient when it comes to vitamin D. So now let's go forward. And when you look here at vitamin D, I want you to be educated as I have been and am being educated. And one of the primary sources that I turn to get information when it comes to vitamin D is this website. We've talked about it before. It's a great resource, dryourself.com. Please just be still. Please just be still, or you can go downstairs. Thank you very much. Okay? So now, when you think about vitamin D and learning all and how and what your body needs and can use, this is a website that we want to recommend you to turn to. Go to the next slide. This website gives a lot of good information, especially relative to cancer fighting and remember cancer fencing. So one of the things that I like about this information is that, for example, when it talks about the anti-cancer properties, one of the things that Dr. Saul brings out is that it's so important and that the Canadian Cancer Society now recommends about 1,000 IUs of vitamin D per day for adults, especially in winter and year round for people who might be at risk. When you see that term IU, IU just stands for International Unit. It's a measurement that's usually specifically for those fat-soluble vitamins. And those vitamins are, just think CADE, right? CADE, K-A-D-E, vitamin K, A, D, and E. So IUs are what's used to let you know how many or how much you need. And we'll talk about that in a minute when we look at the recommended dosage. But another thing that's brought up here by Dr. Saul is that the American Cancer Society has been obsessed with finding a drug cure for cancer. And pharmaceutical researchers are not looking for a vitamin cure. So I know we're talking about this and we're trying to educate. Why haven't I heard this from a physician? Why isn't this something being shouted from the rooftops? Well, when one of these is presented like a vitamin cure, as independent investigators and physicians, they've been continually doing it since 1951. Something's found and it's been ignored. So this is being ignored because you can't patent a vitamin. You can't take that and market it and then isolate it and then profit from it. So let's look at some examples since 1951 of how vitamin D have been used for chronic serious diseases. It's true. Physician reports on vitamin D stopping cancer have been ignored for decades. In 1951, T. Desmonts reported that vitamin D treatment was effective against Hodgkin's disease. That's a cancer in your lymphatic system. That same year, 57 years ago, massive doses of vitamin D were also observed to improve epithelioma. In 1955, skin cancer was again reported as cured with vitamin D treatment. In 1963, there was a promising investigation done in vitamin D in breast cancer. Number 10, then in 1964, vitamin D was found to be effective against lymph nodal reticulosarcoma, a non-Hodgkin's lymphatic cancer. So these big names for these big cancers, in other words, they're just tumor growths in specific parts of the body. These are documented cases. And again, if you go to dryourself.com, you can actually cite the studies that are mentioned here in our brief analysis here that show you how these cancers have been dealt with just by maximizing vitamin D. So now, going forward. So now, just wanted to show you another article here so that you could see this is the information and how it's listed and how the details are listed at the end of every article. It has all of the medical or scientific citations. So it's not just my word against your word or someone else's word or even Dr. Saul's word. These are studies that have been proven and that they've shown evidence, but they're not going to be cited because they don't go with the mainstream thinking of a pharmaceutical versus let's use what God has given us. So now, when you go and look at vitamin or dryourself.com, I also want to recommend that you check out this movie because Dr. Saul has been featured in this movie. And those of you who are on our email list, you've actually gotten this alert sent to you when this was being shown for free. Now, you cannot watch the entire movie for free right now. You can watch the first 30 minutes for free. And if you're like me and you are just really impressed with what you see and what you learn, you can grab an actual copy of the DVD. We want to encourage you to do that as a part of your education, but also as a part of your inspiration when it comes to your health journey. So you can go and check that out at thatvitaminmovie.com, and you can watch the first 30 minutes for free. But in the movie, one of the things that you'll see is where it talks about recommended dosages for vitamin D. And so here is what we've been doing as a family and what we've incorporated with our use of our focus on vitamin C by adding on vitamin D. So let's look at how much do you actually need. Well, when you're thinking about vitamin C, an ideal mark, especially if you're given to disease or especially if you're sick right now, you want to immediately make your goal to get your age in grams. So let's use your age, for example. My age, I'm 44 years old. So my goal every day would be to get 44 grams of vitamin C a day. Now, remember, we tried to simplify our grams because we live in America. We're not on the metric system. Remember, all a gram is 1/4 of a teaspoon. So with 1/4 of a teaspoon, that's 1 gram. So if I took 2 of these, I would have 2 grams. Well, I got to get up to 44. It may be easy then to make my measurement by using a teaspoon, which would give me 4 grams. So now it doesn't seem that daunting where I just need about 10 teaspoons a day of vitamin C. For my age, if you're a little bit older, you'd want to increase that. A little bit younger, you're going to decrease that. Now, remember, we also made a video. We were trying to simplify. Well, man, I can't be doing this 10 times a day. I got to go to work. I don't have time. And I would just honestly forget. Remember, we talked about making your vitamin C in bulk at one time. So let's say you portion out your 10 teaspoons or your 12 teaspoons, or however many you need. And then you can take that amount in that jug or in that bottle and portion it out in smaller containers equally. And you just remember to drink one every hour, or you drink two every hour, or you drink 1 or 2 every 2 hours, whichever works best for you. I personally suggest the hour by hour to make sure that you get your mark. You may want to just mega dose and say, I'm going to drink it all at one time. I've never drank that much at one time because I've reached absorption before I actually even got maybe about 6 grams. So about 6,000 milligrams. That's usually when my tummy starts to rumble. And I know I've saturated myself. I need to now wait, let my body process that and get more. So I'm not aware of anybody drinking that much at one time. I know others have. That's why if you're dealing with chronic diseases, you would want to go the route of perhaps intravenous or IVC or intravenous vitamin C, where you're actually getting it directly into the bloodstream. And you can absorb a whole lot more at one time. In some cases, 20, 30, 40,000 milligrams at a time, okay? But just doing it at home, even if you're dealing with disease, you can portion it out and get your body right and get yourself up to level. So I just did that as an example to show your age in grams. So if you're 23, you want to take 23 grams. Now, when it comes to vitamin D as a supplement, what we've learned is that vitamin D, you probably want to take about your body weight multiplied by 40 in IUs. So your body weight multiplied by 40 in IUs. So let's look at a quick math example. So if you're 125 pounds, if you're 125 pounds times 40, that's going to give you 5,000. That's about how many IUs or international units a day that you'd want to take to supplement with your vitamin D. Now, if you're a little bit heavier, obviously times 40, you're going to need a little bit more. The cool thing about vitamin D, and I'll show you that in a second when I show you the bottles, is that you can buy it in different milligram portions as far as the IUs. They're 1,000 IU bottles, they're 2,000 IU bottles, or 1,000. So if you, or excuse me, or 5,000, even as high as 50,000. So if you know I need like a 6 or a 7, well, you would take, a 5,000 tablet, and then you could take a 1,000, give you your 6, or take 1,000 and take this. You get the idea. You do the math, but it can be done. And the reason why, again, we're showing you how to use it as a supplement is because, again, most vitamin D's are animal based. And so if we're vegan, we can't eat the animals. So you need to think of a supplement. And a supplement can be vegan and vegetarian. I'm going to recommend a couple of those in just a moment. So let's look now at the bottles of where we actually can get the vitamin C. On our website, we have simplified it by listing the vitamin C's and also the vitamin D's that we use in conjunction with our health boosting and illness fighting regimen. You're going to see there on changeministry.org/donate a couple of options. The vitamin C that we recommend is the 2-pound bag, which gives you better bang for your buck, and it helps you, especially if you're in the mode of trying to mega dose. And then you're going to see a couple of vitamin D options. The second option there, that first vitamin D, that's an actual vegan and vegetarian option. That's in a powder form that you can take. That particular one is 5,000 IUs. But like I said, you can get it in 1,000, 2,000, or 5,000 because we have little ones. Like we have Jael, she's much smaller. She's only 40 or 50 pounds. She doesn't need 5,000 IUs. She just needs 1 or 2,000. And so we'll get a smaller dosage for her. Then you have the other option there, which is a vegetarian option, but it's in a gelatin gel cap. Now, being a vegan, depending on your convictions, we don't consume the gelatin either because gelatin is made from animal bones and animal fat. And so we don't consume those. But if we do have the gelatin capsule, one of the tricks, the hacks that we'll do, even though the capsule we can't eat, we do want the vitamin E inside. One, because it's easier if you have children or if you just have a hard time swallowing things, you can pop the capsule and actually drain the oil and then use that oil for your supplement. I'm going to show you how to do that. When you have the vitamin D, for example, what we would do if we would have our vitamin D, we have the 5,000 IU bottle here. And then this is the 2,000 IU bottle here. So I'm just going to use let me use a 5,000 IU bottle. So you'll take your capsule, and the capsule, it's pretty small. Again, small is relative. That kind of gives you an idea of how big it is. It's not a big horse pill. It's very small. 5,000 IUs, though. This will give you the vitamin D that you need for the day. It's amazing how easy it is to supplement. Because don't be afraid when you think about supplement, because if you look at the different sources of vitamin D for vegans, most of them will be in foods that have been fortified with vitamin D, like almond milks or oatmeal or soy milk or things like that. There's not vitamin D in it. They literally took the vitamin D, the powder form, like you see there in that second, and they added it to the mix of what they were cooking. So rather than having to eat the foods that have been fortified to get the vitamin D, you can just fortify what you're eating with your own vitamin D, which is what we do. And all we do is we take a pen. You can take a safety pin that you sterilize, or you can even take a push pin like we use, and we just push it here in the end of the capsule, and we just take it out. And so now there's a small hole that you can't see, but you can draw out now the vitamin D. And as you see, that's it. That was like 4 drops of olive oil because the fat soluble, it carries well with fat. And so that's it. That gave us 5,000 IUs with about 4 drops of what would just look like olive oil, which it is mixed with. And there you have your vitamin D for the day. We suggest you doing it this way, again, if you can't swallow, and it's better than not taking it at all. Some people may say, well, can I take the liquid form? Absolutely. If you want to go ahead and just get the liquid form, you sure can do that. I even got a little bit on my fingers, but because it's basically olive oil with vitamin D in it, I'm gonna go ahead and just rub it in my hand. So now when we use it, obviously you can go a couple of ways. You can put it into your vitamin C when you're taking your vitamin C in the morning. The family didn't like that idea. They tried that. They weren't really big fans of the oil in the water. And if, like me, though, I just put it in and I just swallowed it down and had no problem. Because it is best to consume your vitamin D in the daytime. Think about it. If our primary source of vitamin D is sunlight, when is our body really designed by God to absorb that sunlight or that vitamin D? In the daytime. So it's best to take it in the morning. But if you don't want to drink it, but you still want to get it in the morning, you can just you saw those 4 drops. You just pop your capsule, or you just go ahead and take the supplement with your meal. If you have a capsule that's vegetarian or vegan and you can swallow, you're good to go. But if you can't swallow, just drop it on your cereal, or you can put it on your savory food. That's what we do in the evening when they're having dinner. I'll just go around and just put a drop. Their IUs on everybody's food, and everybody just eats it, and they don't even know that they're eating it, but their body does. And it's really been a blessing to add on to the daily consumption of the vitamin C. So hopefully this empowers you and you feel a little bit encouraged, like, okay, I can get my vitamin D in. I don't have to drink a lot of milk from cow. I don't have to eat 18 pounds of salmon or some fish. You can just get those 4 drops, or if you will, that one little capsule. And this gives us enough vitamin D for the day, way more than we would probably eat on a normal basis otherwise. But our body absolutely needs it. If you want to get some, go to changeministry.org/donate. Click on those links. You get it shipped to you probably within the next day, at the latest the day after if you have Amazon Prime. But obviously, even if you don't get it here, get in your vitamin D. Supplement it. Rather than eating the food that fortifies it, fortify yourself and be blessed. So that's our take on vitamin D. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you got any questions, make sure to send those in, because we want to try and answer them the best we can so we all feel empowered. It should not be something difficult or cumbersome, and it doesn't have to be expensive. You can look at the prices right there. This bottle right here, 5,000, 2,000 IUs, it was like $4. And this one has 120 capsules. This one here, 240 soft gels, it was about $7. Think about what you spend on heart medication. Think about what you spend on high blood pressure medication. Think how much we spend going to find out, hopefully, what will be wrong, when this is guaranteed to make us right, because God made us to have it. So it's getting warmer a little bit now. You can get out there in the sunshine. But even that, if you know that you're not getting outside, and if you get outside, you just want to make sure you got your bases covered, we highly recommend you add on vitamin D supplementation along with your vitamin C. So far, vitamin C, vitamin D, that can equal good health. Well,